This is Tabletop Babble, and I'm Amber. Hello! Today on the show, I chatted with editor and writer Shane Ormond. We sat down on July 11th, and he shared his experience with maybe the most bizarre business venture I've personally ever heard from someone I know. And then we got into Fat Magic, a 5e campaign set in a world saturated by delicious and dangerous food magic. We talked about the inception of this campaign, how it was born from the pandemic, burnout, and missing the ability to share a meal with his D&D group. As of this episode release, Fat Magic is live on Kickstarter, and it's also a project I'm contributing to as a graphic designer. Go to fatmagicrpg.com to check it out. Hello, Shane, and welcome to Tabletop Babble. For my listeners, please, would you introduce yourself, your pronouns, and what you do in the space?
Hey, I'm Shane Ormond. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a writer and an editor, and I'm the creator of Fat Magic.
So, full disclosure, if you follow me on Twitter, then you've probably seen me retweeting Fat Magic stuff, and that's because I am working on Fat Magic with Shane as a graphic designer. So, I'm excited to talk with Shane because we've only been really talking about here, Amber, do some graphic design. I'm like, okay, graphic design. And then I only know Fat Magic through what I have seen in doing the layout. So I'm really excited to talk to you about it and kind of get to know the background. But before we get into Fat Magic, is this the first thing you've done RPG-wise as far as publishing, getting it out there, or have you been doing writing and editing before this?
Or RPG-wise, it absolutely is. I've been in the publishing industry for 10 years in my professional and amateur life. That's taken the form of many different and strange jobs. I've worked for many shady, weird people. My very first editing job was for it was for a news website, and it was owned by a man who had never owned a computer before, and he had never owned a TV in I think something like 50 years. And he owned a bar in Barbados, I think it was. And some guy came into the bar and was like, all the money is on the internet. And this guy was like, I'm going to start a news website. And so he came to Ireland and started a news website and did not hired 70 people on day one. Because he had apparently made a fortune off of cowhide, making leather and upholstering things. And so he hired 70 people, and he did, from day one onwards, he did not pay any taxes, which we only found out about when the place closed down, and he had to go on the lam, and I think he's been on the lam since.
Oh my God. When you're like, this man who had never owned a TV or a computer wants to start a news site, and what year was this? In the 2000s? 2010s?
Yeah, this would have been 10 years ago.
Oh my God.
And there was a period where he was firing someone every day. And there was a point where he hired the fashion correspondent, who was this young trendy guy who wore these tweed suits, immaculately oiled mustache. And the fashion segment still had to go out. So he was like, I'll do it, sure. And he goes on to the fashion segment, and he's wearing a baggy denim shirt, dirty denim jeans, black shoes. And, he's a 70-year-old Irishman who's been living in Barbados for the last 20 years. So has no idea what's going on in the fashion world.
He sounds like an RPG character. Honestly, this sounds exactly like any campaign. All of my campaigns have always had people wanting to start ridiculous businesses. And this just sounds like, yeah, I made a bunch of money selling cowhide. I think I'm going to become an entrepreneur in the news industry. Let's do this. So how long did that last for, the company?
Not long at all. Yeah, it was 6 months kind of functional, and then petering out for another 5 or 6 months. When it closed down, there was 3 of us working there.
What were you doing? What were you, Shane, doing for this person?
Kind of news regurgitation. So skimming the news, finding stories, rewriting them in our house style, which was ill-defined, and
Of course.
putting it out, online ASAP. Just like a content mill, as much post as
Yeah.
possible.
So were you just doing? Was the website just articles, or was there video? Was there video? Like, what was else was going on here?
There was articles, there was video, there was a planned segment for a live Big Brother style house. Like
This
it
sounds...
was there was women from all over Ireland who were coming to college, and he was going to give them a house, but he was going to film it all, and it was called like Girl House or something. That never got off the ground, thank God.
God. I'm losing my mind right now, because to me, you have a rich experience to like turn that into another campaign of some sort. Like that's just, I just want to talk more about it, but we should probably.
Yeah, honestly, I've forgotten mostly about it until we started talking about it.
Oh my gosh. So okay, so you're doing article stuff for this ridiculous Irish news website. Where did you go from there? Did you enjoy that experience at all by any chance?
No, there was a day that was kind of close to the end where we were driving to up to the where the studio was, and Neil Young's Heart of Gold played on the radio, and I started full sobbing, crying.
No. No. So I'm assuming this wasn't like your first. Was this like your first foray into writing as a profession?
Yeah.
Okay.
It had been kind of like like in the early 2010s, and even now, like gaming blogs and stuff like that will give freelance work to like anyone for like incredibly cheap. So there was a bit of that before that. The website was called Feck TV, by the way. I don't know if that's...
How do you spell that? Because I want to look it up.
Feck. Feck is kind of like the Irish F-bomb, but it's lighter. It's kind of like what your grandma would say.
Okay.
And then, so after that, there was a guy who I got along well with at that company, and we started a culture magazine that was kind of like just about comic creators in Cork, about musicians in Cork, about bars and stuff like that. That was really fun. That was like actually working with indie people. There was lots of fun, cool art. You got to like big up all the creators in town. Absolutely no money in it. It was like pulling teeth because it was all advertising driven. And 100% of my free time was spent in like bars and coffee shops talking to people who do not want to give you any money. Then I worked at a retirement magazine that's like for retirees who want to retire overseas. And that was actually like pitched at Americans. So like that was kind of like my foray into America, because that was like an American company based in Ireland, because you get sweet tax deal if you base your company in Ireland because of our gross neoliberal government. But so from there, that company is connected to a bunch of companies over here. And I transferred over here and ended up somehow, I write comedy financial news, which I have no background in finance. I have no background in business. It's just what I'm doing. It pays the bills. I get to make a lot of jokes about Elon Musk. It's kind of fun. But kind of like all the time when I was doing that, like there's the day job, which paid the bills. And then I was always constantly doing like some form of amateur creating, mostly in like comic work. So I have a couple of comics out in Ireland, a series called The Guards. It's not great. It hasn't aged well. I'm actually in the process of going back at the moment with the artist, and we're like, his art's always amazing, but it's got even more amazing. So we're updating the art, we're updating the text, and making it just a bit more mature, a bit better told, a bit more like sensitive. And I'm looking forward to that. That's on the back burner for a while because the Kickstarter has kind of taken over, and he's working for like I think Todd McFarlane.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Drawing like spawns and dudes covered in patches and chains and stuff.
Yes. When I think Todd McFarlane, I think a very shiny black leather and lots of muscles and guns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's good at that. He's got like a really gritty, dark style. So yeah, that my partner and I we came over here to Baltimore, and we met a through their job. We met a wonderful group of people who became like our D&D group / people who are always in our house. And so like Fat Magic was like born out of that D&D group. The process of me feeling out that group and catering to their sensibilities and creating what is like ultimately a satisfying game for me and a satisfying game for those folks, is basically like Fat Magic is the ultimate realization of that.
Was that group your first experience in D&D, or did you have D&D experience prior to that?
I had D&D experience prior. I think I came late in life to TTRPGs, just because like I had undiagnosed ADHD until I was like 33. So hobbies bounced off me like water off a duck's back. You'd pick it up, you'd run it for 6 months, and you'd just lose interest, and you wouldn't know why. But it was like 5 or 6 years ago whenever Wizards of the Coast dropped that beginner box for Lost Mines of Phandelver, that somehow ended up underneath my partner's Christmas tree. And we ran the first game of that. And like, since we ran the first game of that, we've been playing some TTRPG or another at least once a week, mostly twice a week. In a couple of terrible misbegotten times, we were running 3 or 4 times a week, which is so many. It's not recommended if you want to do anything other than think about TTRPGs, which is fine, but also it's going to ruin your brain.
Well, yeah, I mean, like for the ADHD stuff, for me, I also have that. And it's definitely, I've been experiencing, I get burnt out pretty fast on things. And but it's like, it's that beautiful, couple month period where that's all you want to do and that's all your focus is on. And then you go, I'm done, and walk away from it. And I know that feeling. So yeah, 3 or 4 makes sense if you like, I'm hyper focused on this. I love it. But then after a while, you're like, oh no, what have I done? What am I doing?
For some reason, like whatever it is about like the secret recipe of TTRPGs, where you're sitting at a table with your friends and you're improvising, so like you can like you're coming up with stuff on the fly, and it's joking and it's not too serious, but there's opportunity to explore like big ideas and emotions. It just scratches whatever part of my ADHD brain doesn't glom onto other things. Like I have never gotten bored with, like, even if a game wasn't to my taste, I have never ever considered like, oh, we got to stop playing TTRPGs for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it is. I think the part of me that burns out is when I'm the GM.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm running a long-term campaign, I tend to stop wanting to prepare for it because I have my own way of preparing for things, and I am not going to change it because I've tried doing like the really light style, and it doesn't make me feel comfortable. I'm better if I have like a flow chart and I know what I'm going on. Sometimes that takes a lot of time for me to sit down and focus on it. But as a player, if you ask me to play a game, oh, I'm there. Like, yeah. I'll sit down and play it. I think it's the social aspect too, where it's like you said, like that getting together with people. It just makes it easier for my ADHD brain to be like, oh yeah, I'm sitting down having fun with my friends.
Yeah, and there's something as well. If people suffer with anxiety, there's something about having an added layer of protection of like another character that you're playing. So like, if you make a social faux pas as like Clancy, the half goblin, half orc, it doesn't feel as damaging as if you make like a social faux pas as Shane,
Yeah, yes. So for Fat Magic, this game campaign that was born out of your D&D group. So were you the GM for this group, this game?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it actually like it was born out of burnout a little bit. Because so the beginning of Fat Magic coincides with the beginning of the pandemic. And what happened was we were like forced into that like a situation where we had to go from being in each other's like bubble multiple days a week to never seeing each other for months. And we had to move our game online. And so we put whatever game we were doing on hold, and I think we were like were doing something quick and easy, like a Western Dungeons and Dragons, something that's fun, something that like has themes that you can draw on that doesn't take like too much work. And it was fun. Like I've talked to the players a little bit about it since, and they really like the characters that they had. They really like the world. But when I was running it, there was something for me that felt like it felt insincere. It felt like it wasn't. I wasn't pouring myself into this project. I was biding time, and it that kind of felt like fine at the start of the pandemic to bide time. But when I realized that we were going to be in this for a very, very long time potentially, and this was like an opportunity to explore something. And then once we got better, like playing online as well, I realized we could have like a bigger, more interesting game. So I started like my brain started like ticking that like I wanted to do something different. And I'm not capable of talking to my brain and saying like, no, you can't do that. So it started devising a game on its own. And I woke up at like 2 a.m. in the middle of the night one night, and I wrote out 2 pages of whatever I was thinking of at that point. And I literally went back and I looked at it recently, and it is the bullet points for Act 1. Like it is word for word, like almost exactly Act 1. There's some names in there that are even the same, some plot points. And so I went to the group and I was like, look, I'm feeling kind of burnt out on this one. I have something, I'm really passionate about something I think I can do something big with. Would you be okay if we switch to this? Because I know it's a huge thing to ask that of people, especially when they are invested in their characters. And thankfully, I like my table is full of wonderful, supportive people. They're all also kind of like neurodivergent, so they're kind of like understanding that, you know, they are buttons and dials and stuff that are constantly tweaking under the surface. And we went with it, and then it kind of like it started from that one game and just like started ramping up and rocketing off. Like it was very quickly before it was very early that we just started using fat magic as a verb. Like we were like, that's fat magic. You know, if something was positive, or if there was like a big lady with muscles who was like smart and like accomplished, she was like, that's fat magic. And now it's lost all meaning because like it means that's fat magic is so many things.
So it's so funny because I'm sure a lot of people who are listening probably had the similar experience if they had in-person games where you had a campaign going and then you kind of had to stop and like, okay, wait, let's put that on hold. And while we wait, let's just play something else. And my group did the same thing. In fact, our Tales from Moxbury, we were in the middle of a Godbound campaign when the pandemic happened. And we're like, oh, shoot, you know, and we were in a studio. And so we're like, we can't do that. Let's just do a silly game that's pretty lighthearted. And we ended up doing a dungeon world game, and it was going to be just a one shot, like maybe 4 sessions possibly. And you're going to love this, which is why when you reached out to me and said, hey, I've got this game called Fat Magic, would you be interested? And I'm like, anything about food is great for me. The campaign we did was all about a cooking competition.
Yes.
And my character was a silly wizard named Apple Fritter.
Yes.
Who was sticky all the time and constantly eating and had stuff in his pockets. And was very, very chubby and very, very cute. And he was an elf, but he did not look like your stereotypical, you know, Tolkien elf or whatever when you think of elves. And so I think it's really funny that you had, I mean, funny now in hindsight, you know, because looking back at the time, it's like, whoa, that time was awful. But funny that food became the comfort. So my question to you is like, was it purely random, or were you thinking food things, and that's why it happened at 2 a.m.?
So food is like intrinsically linked to our D&D games, like especially in our group, because like when my group comes over, I usually I try and stop work like maybe an hour and a half before they come over, and then I start cooking. And so like my prep for a game is actually like cooking food rather than actual any game prep. It just gets me in that like mind space. And then before we play, we sit down, we eat, we catch up on like non-D&D stuff, and we make sure that like, you know, we're aware of what's going on like each other's lives, because there was a while there where we were playing and we realized that we had met through D&D, so we knew more about each other's characters than we did about each other. So this is kind of like a way to check in and like be like, yes, even if this is the only thing we're doing, we're friends, we know what's going on in each other's life. Of course, we're also talking in a group chat that we talk to each other 24 hours. I don't know. We live in each other's pockets. But once you removed that element where like I wasn't able to like feed them anymore, it kind of broke my heart a little bit. And I was like searching for a way to like inject that feeling into a game. Food, I feel like, is a really like rich avenue for discussing lots of things, because I mean, right there you have like that kind of like small community of friendship, but also food is like a way to talk about like cultures and a way to talk about also like capitalism and like the production of food. It's a very rich well to plumb that makes storytelling particularly easy.
It truly is, because I no one saw this, but as you're like talking about like food production and like the capitalism, I was laughing because I had yet another campaign where we were up against Big Sugar. So, that and how things get produced and who's exploiting what and who's controlling how things get distributed. I mean, even in real world stuff, right? Like food deserts and things like that. It's food is important to the human experience. So makes sense to transfer over.
Each of the communities, so there's going to be 4 acts that take place in like 4 distinct kind of like communities, and each of them has like a different relationship with food and a different relationship with their society, and they're all kind of toxic in their own little ways. Like salted pork seems like the best, but it's still pretty terrible if you read like the quick start guide. The second one is like a tiered society called Cake Town. And it's run by like these vampire overlords called the Valavants. And their like mechanism of control is the Valavant Potato Company. And basically like everybody in the town almost like works for the potato company, and they get paid in like money that they can only spend like in stores that are like sponsored by the potato company. And they like most of the food there that they eat is like these terrible potatoes, because the only thing that will grow in this like acrid land are these like petrified potatoes. So a lot of the people there have to eat it, but they don't realize that the company is like yeah, the potatoes aren't good, but you can grind them down into like potato flour and then sell them to the city at like a much higher price. And so the potato company is actually doing really, really well, and none of the workers are seeing any of that. And of course, I'm Irish, so when I had to think of like food, that an oppressive food, I was like, potatoes.
Yes, of course. I wasn't gonna say it. I let you say it.
Yeah. I think it's okay to point out the potato thing. I don't love it when it happens all the time.
Don't let that be the only thing.
Hi, I'm Josh, and I run an actual play podcast that I'd like you to check out. I'm using the Godbound system, and I create a sandbox-style game in a large city called Moxbury. All of the player characters are evil, and I think that this really creates an interesting narrative because...
Nobody cares! I, Azrael, had to reconfigure reality to become the evil saint of Pelor. Now I plan to overthrow the government of Moxbury and amass followers. Then I will become...
You wouldn't know the first thing about reconfiguring reality. I did it, not you. I, Milana, want no part of your feeble plans. When my plan comes to fruition, all of Moxbury will become my undead army, with them at my command.
They have to be dead before they become undead. I'm going to silence this entire city and prove myself. Prove Gerlach worthy of the goddess of the void.
No! Leave the monsters. I, Nuak Godslayer, will raise an army of monsters. They will overthrow our human leaders and live free. And I will be there.
Will all you quit your bickering and shut your faces? I, Brimstone, hear enough voices in my head without all of you talking over each other. All I want to do is kill the wizard Shalazar. It doesn't sound too difficult, does it?
If I have my way, it will be. Check out Tales from Moxbury wherever you find your podcasts or geekspective.com.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about the actual Kickstarter. You mentioned that there are going to be 4 acts for this 5e campaign, and if you go to fatmagicrpg.com, that will take you to the Kickstarter, and that's where you can right now get the first act, which is free as a PDF download, called The Porkening. So let's go into more of what the Kickstarter is going to offer.
Yeah, so like at the like base level, you got the book, which is going to be like a 250 plus page book, which is going to have this huge 4X story in it. It'll also come with a bunch of like foodie subclasses, so like Pact of the Celebrity Chef Warlock. There's the Cold Brute Barista Barbarian, the Sorcerer. I can't say that.
I'm not even going to attempt because I will also make it very slurpy sounding.
And then the Spaghetti Wizard or the Pastamancer, which appears in like all our branding because it's super fun to say Spaghetti Wizard. There'll also be a bunch of unique spells. There'll be a table in there for reflavoring spells that are already in there, so you can kind of bring like a foodie flavor to like your entire spell list. There'll also be a monster menu, which is like packed with lots of different monsters and creatures and NPCs. All the monsters are like food themed. Some of the NPCs are, some of them are like their own thing. Yeah, so that's the base level of like probably what the book will contain. As we add stretch goals, there'll be additional content added. If you get the book as a PDF or as a hard copy, you'll get everything from the stretch goals. Nobody gets left out of any content. Then, yeah, so in your like higher reward tiers, then where you get the DM screen, which is going to be designed by Kinley, who is one of our amazing artists who seems to like, I think Kinley gets Fat Magic more than anyone else. Like I give them these briefs, and she just sends back just the wild, like she takes these wild swings without even consulting me, and it's always perfect. She designs the bad guy for Act 1, Sir Francis, who's this kind of like pompous skeleton. He's kind of meant to be like be a parody of one of these like libertarian capitalist con men. And she gave him like a gold spun wig that's in the shape of a sausage, which is so wild. Like I will never understand how she comes to these decisions. She also has I don't want to talk about Kinley for too long, but she does the most amazing frog art, and she's currently running a series of like all the D&D classes as frogs, and I am absolutely delighted by every single one of them. So she is going to be designing the DM screen, and that's going to take you from the party leaving Salted Pork, and then like traveling through Cake Town and the Soprasetta Desert, and then you're going to kind of see like a Fat Magic party in their final forms in like the final battle scenario. It's framed in a way that you don't see who they're fighting, but they're pitched in this epic battle on the walls of Left on Burner, and they're all going to be in their like awesome final armor and clothes.
I just want to say that I love the shown concept of the DM screen, but I personally want the long hot dog one I saw. Like, I love hot dogs.
Yeah.
And I love silly hot dogs.
Long dog is so funny because like, okay, so Kinley has done two concepts for the DM screen, and the one that I just described is like an undertaking that's taking dozens of hours, like so much labor, and Long Hot Dog was done in 10 minutes.
And I love me a gimmick hot dog, so you know what?
And everyone's like, hell yeah, let's get the hot dog one. So I don't know. I think what we're gonna have to do is maybe add it as a stretch goal. So like if we hit the stretch goal, we'll add it as an add-on or something like that. Because yeah, everybody loves long hot dog.
Or if you can make it a plush. I'm adding to your Kickstarter, Shane.
No, we absolutely explored getting it as a plush. It is very expensive to do. There was always kind of like in the back of our head, like if this thing exploded or whatever, for whatever reason, we would get a plush. But it is so hard to do. And also, I'm like so worried about like the environmental kind of stuff that you can't see going on.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a lot of time and research to find a company that aligns with your own, I guess, moral compass of what you think of production. So, Okay, so sorry. DM screen was one, and a dice bag as well, right? Yes.
Dice bag. You got like I think you got like your standard ones, like a dice bag and a beer koozie with the logo on it. The beer koozie is mostly there because I'm like obsessed with drinks cozies. Like I come from a country where they don't exist. So like I've been collecting them obsessively since I came here. And I was like, heck yeah, I want my brand on it.
What's your favorite drinks cozy?
Can I go up and grab some drinks?
Yes,
cozies?
show me your drinks cozy. This is why I should do video.
Okay, give me 2 seconds.
Okay. All right, I'm ready. All right, you're going to have to describe it for the listeners, because unfortunately I do not do the video.
I could have grabbed a bunch, but these two are my favorite. So this is kind of like this is just a really nice Maryland one.
Oh wow, it is beautiful.
I don't know what that style is, but it's in beautiful kind of like green and kind of like fuchsia colors, and it's got a picture of the bridge, and
there's of course a crab on there.
Yeah, you got a crab. Then my other one is
Unsolved.
It's from BuzzFeed Unsolved. There's like, do you know what BuzzFeed Unsolved is?
I think I've heard of it. Yes.
Yeah, it's like two boys who do like true crime stuff, and they just like talk about it, and they're wacky, and they have a huge like following of young girls on the internet, which I am one of. And so one of them does these like cartoons after the episodes, which have nothing to do with true crime, and it's actually a food universe. It's like an epic soap opera where these food travel across the universe, and this is like a food truck, and it looks like there's two plums serving hot dogs, and it says "Bun solved."
It's so funny. I would have never thought of a drinks koozie as something to be collected. That's awesome. Yeah. I love it.
I love them. We actually went to, this is getting off topic, but we went to see the Unsolved Boys up when they came to DC, and it was like the audience was me and 200 teenage girls.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. It's fine. Whatever. I don't here on Tabletop Babble. I used to try to keep on topic, but my goodness, my brain doesn't allow for that. Show me your beer koozies. Show me things. Okay, but I'll try now, listener. I'm gonna get us back into the Kickstarter rewards.
I promise I'll be good.
All right, here we go. Next up.
Next we have the Rad Vibes T-shirt, which is like, we could have just done like a Fat Magic T-shirt, but one of the wild swings that Kinley took was she was drawing this tiefling who's actually going to appear on the DM screen, and they've become known as the Rad Vibes tiefling, and they're like a goth, and they've got this kind of like crop top on with a radish, and it says Rad Vibes over the radish. And it's becoming this thing that Rad Vibes is like a band in this universe. So this is going to be like an in-universe band tee for Rad Vibes. And actually, so this Wednesday and Saturday, I'm running 2 one-shots, one on the Weave the Tale network and one on, I think it's at Theatrophiles Twitch. When's this coming out? This is coming out tomorrow?
This is coming out tomorrow. So yes, dear listeners, we're recording this on Sunday. I'm going to edit it right after, and then so when Shane is saying this week, it's literally this week.
This is a slight spoiler, but part of the one shots, they have to go on a quest to reassemble the band Rad Vibes, who broke up in a kind of like Fleetwood Macian love triangle.
I love it so much.
And then we got Dice Tower, which is really cool. That's being designed at the moment by Sam McInnes, who's the incredible artist who did the Falling Soup Wizard, who appears on a lot of our branding. We got what are they called? Enamel Pin. That's for the membership in the Critics Alliance, which is this shady organization that like exists in the world of Fat Magic. You'll be learning a lot more about them in the coming days. I don't know who's designing that.
I don't know who's doing that
who
either.
Could be doing that?
I don't know. Somebody who's good at designing enamel pins. Wink, wink. Me. It's me. Surprise, everybody.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that pin, and I Yeah, I know I sent you a super vague email describing the design.
We're good. We're good. We could talk about that off air at some point, but I'm
Okay,
excited to
all
do
right.
it because I guess I'll plug myself. If you go to my Etsy, Rocket Orca, like I've got a bunch of enamel pins. It's been something I've been doing as a passion project for myself the last year and a half, and I'm really enjoying. There's a fun challenges in designing an enamel pin. It's not the same as doing anything else, so.
They're really cool. Honestly, the only reason we have an enamel pin is because I saw it on your page and I was like, oh, I know someone who could do that. With that, you get kind of like your D&D pseudonym or your name can appear as a member of the Critics Alliance at some point in the text. That'll be kind of like ironed out later, and it largely depend on like how many people have to like fit into the text. But it'll likely be on a document that the players find. And then there's the Fit for a King tier, which is our like highest $300 tier. That's one of our Fat Magic artists will actually draw your OC and include them in an illustration in the game, which I honestly thought we'd only get like one or two of. We are now have 13 people who are going to appear in the game.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought about just doing it myself because I was like, I want to put apple fritter in this game. I could take the money that I got paid from Shane, put it into back to Shane so that I may but I also have dog vet bills that I have to pay. So
nope, pay your dog vet bills. Yeah. So yeah, they're going to be in the game and they're going to be like in the background of a scene. Probably in Left on Burner or Cake Town, or they might like, depending on what your kind of vibe is, they might appear as one of the desert folk in the Soprasetta.
Cool. That's awesome. I really love the dice tower design, which looks like a birthday cake, like a tiered cake with a frog wizard stuck in it, and it's really cute.
It's so good. We're working. There's a lot of kind of like technical stuff to work out. So we're currently in that stage where we're back and forthing between the like artist and the people who are actually making it, where Sam wants to do X and they can only do Y. So we're kind of like inching kind of closer to a compromise.
What made you guys decide, oh, this is something we could actually produce? Like, what was that? The impetus of like, yes, let's do this as a setting, or let's do this as a campaign.
My intention had always been to produce something, not on this level, because like I said, I'm constantly kind of like producing amateur work in my spare time, and I think around the time that I made the decision to do this, it was when my artist said that he was like going to be working on Spawn, so I needed something to work on. And I was like, I spent a lot of my time working on homebrew D&D. It seemed like it kind of like a natural idea that like I could combine the two and make like the passion project also the project that I was working on at the same time. So it started off pretty small. It was literally just going to be like, I'm going to maybe release a PDF at the end of this thing that like details everything of our campaign. As we were playing it just grew and grew, and it became this world that my players at the table became so passionate about. When we started the Kickstarter, they became so heavily involved in like promoting it and like making sure that it, I have a lot of anxiety. So I'm not going to go into like a bar, like every bar in Maryland with like a flyer and be like, hey, can I leave this here? I have a friend, he was one of the playtesters on the first one. He printed out a whole bunch of flyers, and he doesn't have that part of the brain that says don't do that. And he just went into every bar, every game shop, anywhere where they would be like a nerd who would play D&D. And he was just like, can I leave these here? And those flyers are all over Maryland right now. And it just, when I saw how like passionate they became about their characters and like what the world grew into from that original like one page outline, it kind of became very clear that we could potentially do something with this. Actually, it was very funny when we first like sat down I think they might have been a miscommunication to one player because they didn't realize they were getting in for something like a big campaign, because they named their character Snacklemore.
But it's perfect.
And so like they were like, oh, I would have come up with like a character with a cool backstory and a cool name if I realized this was going to be like the biggest campaign of our lives.
No, that player, I love you. Snacklemore is perfect. And you know what? You don't need a backstory when you go into a campaign. You can make it up and retcon and have flashbacks along the way.
Also, we realized like shortly into Snacklemore's lifespan that player, they were height blind. So they're quite short. I don't think they're going to mind me saying that, but they are completely unable to tell what heights other people are, because they were like, oh, could you describe your character? And they were like, oh yeah, it's they're Macklemore height, about 6'5" or 6'6".
Macklemore height. I mean, that's great. I love it.
The giant Macklemore. So yeah, it kind of like it started to take off, and then once we had wrapped up the campaign, I brought on one of the other players as an editor. It's Hannah. She has professionally worked as an editor in the past, and she's got like a lot of experience in publishing. And honestly, I just kind of need someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to like validate me. It can feel very meaningless writing into the void, especially if you're doing it over a long period of time, at the worst period of time in like the history of our lifespan. So Hannah started like, tinkering with it and fine tuning it. And it started to become like, a real kind of like formal book. And then I commissioned Jess Kaczynski, who does the art for campaign podcast Courier Call. I'd always kind of pictured Fat Magic, like the characters in it, in that style. So when I had to like make a cover, I didn't know you could just reach out and be like, I'll give you money to make this. Apparently you can. So he did, and it's absolutely incredible. That kind of informed a lot of the tone going forward. Like when I would bring on a new artist, I would send them that cover, and I would then start, after Kinley came on, I started sending them those pictures as well. And it was one of those things that like, I had always thought Fat Magic was a little messy. Like it's a huge mix of styles and feelings and aesthetics. There's like greaser thieflings, and there's hot dog monsters, and there's spooky vampires, and there's people wearing like suits of armor with like a detective coat over it. It's like a mishmash of styles and aesthetics. Everyone I spoke to, every artist immediately got it. They were like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then they like would draw something. I think I've given people 2 notes on images since like I've started commissioning stuff, because people just instantly get it, and they instantly like churn out exactly what I'm looking for. And like it became clear like this is something that already exists in people's heads, and we're just kind of like pulling it out and putting it on the page. And yeah, so we brought on the artists, and we started building the like Twitter presence, and we started feeling around to see what sort of response there would be out there. And it kind of became clear that, yeah, maybe we had something. Like it's definitely not something you can just put out there and it instantly, is a mega hit. Like it's been enormous work every day of the Kickstarter, pumping it out. I just prior to starting the Kickstarter, I got I had been meaning to buy a PC for years. I bought a PC. I have never played like the majority of PC games because I haven't been able to. I still haven't, because I think I've logged 2 hours of playtime since the Kickstarter has started. I'm more Twitter than man right now.
Oh my gosh, which I'm going to commend you. Like, I mean, I'm following your Twitter, the Fat Magic Twitter. And yeah, to put out that much like tweets and engagement and then pulling stuff together, it takes a lot of time. Social media managers are like, I mean, they're wizards and yeah, very powerful. And I think you're doing great. So I have a personal question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is, you're getting art done and you've got all this, you're edited, you got your art done. I want to know, how did you find me as a graphic designer? Because that's always a mystery to me.
There is a list that I think was compiled by Orion D. Black.
Oh, yes. That was ages ago.
On Twitter. And I went through like every single person on the list, and I emailed a couple of people. You were actually the first person I emailed because I thought that your style suited Fat Magic like more so than anyone else. And then you took a little bit to get back. I think you were busy,
yes,
or something. And so there was a couple of people I spoke with who were kind of like my second and third choices. And then we were kind of at this space where like we were thinking of maybe going with someone who wouldn't have been ideal for the project. And you emailed kind of like out of the blue, and you were like, "Hey, I'm available for this." And it was like, oh my God. Like it was like down to the wire.
Yeah. Sorry for taking so long to respond.
No, I get it. Folks are busy. And like, it's hard to describe how much work you did in how little time. Like, maybe you want to speak to that, but I was pretty sure that like, I was giving you wild demands and like asking way too much of you, and you were like meeting them, going above and beyond. Things were coming in far faster than I had ever expected.
So dear listener, as I am progressing into working towards full-time freelance, that's my goal. I do have a day job, which is part of the reason why it takes me a long time to reply to stuff, because sometimes my day job burns me out so much. It's not creative. Well, it's creative in that it's puzzle solving, but I'm a manager, and a lot of the puzzles I'm solving are how do I get information fast and give it out and delegate it to other people, and not so much in the design aspect anymore. As a designer, at some point in a company, you end up getting to the point where it's like, oh, you're a manager now, and that means less actual work as far as designer and more you're in spreadsheets, you're in emails and meetings, and that's very exhausting, especially when you're an introvert. And so I do get a lot of requests for work because I am kind of still doing freelance stuff, but I have to pick and choose. And I saw your email and I saw the pitch for it, and I was like, I really want to do this, but I'm so burnt out I can't email right now. So I'm glad that I did get back to you just in the nick of time, because
I did not mean to put you on blast for not emailing back. It was
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. I'm giving you, Shane, some context for where I am at as a designer. And so I'm glad I was able to get back to you because I really wanted to do it. I love RPGs, obviously. And I love food in games. We make up restaurants in every campaign that we do that are and we just want to spend time eating as characters in restaurants. So I was like, yes, I want to do this. And yeah, like when I emailed you, I had time. Like I knew that any of my free time was going to be going to Fat Magic, plus keeping up to date with my other projects that are ongoing. But I want to say this. I have 12 years of experience in layout. I'm pretty fast. Once I get a concept locked, the actual like layout part of it, it's easy breezy, whatever. So to me, it didn't feel like a lot of demand. You're like, oh yeah, I have 50 pages that I need laid out in 3 weeks. All right, no problem. I need a logo done. Can you get it done in 2 weeks? Yeah, sure. As long as you have a strong concept, which you did, at least you're like, well, at least you gave me a good theme, right? You're like, we're looking at this to be like a menu style, like think 1950s retro-ish diner. It's all food stuff. And I was like, well, and we kind of want some cute like food elements in there, like as like icons or like bullet points or whatever. And I was like, boom, bam, got it. Make a Pinterest board, send you some concepts. You liked it. All right, cool. I'm going to go on to the next. And I want to point out like what you said about how your prep is when you cook, right? Like for D&D, your game.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of my time, if I'm not actually working on something, just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So if I'm walking my dog, if I'm working out, or if I'm cooking cooking food, whatever, like I'm thinking about what I want. So I do a lot of visual stuff before I sit down, so that by the time I sit down, I can just boom, execute on it. So
Yeah.
there's the behind the curtains Wizard of Oz for you.
But my part of that brain is literally just darkness. Like I can't visualize anything. Like I am in such awe of people who have like pictures and like sliding panels back there and can do stuff with it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because it's strange to me because like I'm not strong in writing. I'm not strong in like conveying things through words, I feel like. But if you tell me I'm thinking this and I can do it, and which is another one of the things that made me feel super excited to work on this, was you're like, I'm not strong in that. I'm looking to the artists and designers to like basically come up with that concept. I'm like, hell yeah, my day job is so not fun. Let me be creative.
Yeah, like the koozie that we talked about earlier, like that is all you. I mean, like I had an idea that the Fat Magic logo would be on a koozie. I did not know what color the koozie would be. I did not know what the Fat Magic logo would look like. Like all of that was you, and you designed it, and you put together the mock-up for the Kickstarter page. And also the mock-ups are like, you can reach out and touch them gorgeous.
You can thank the people on creative like market or other places that have templates and stuff. That's really, really helpful. Like as a graphic designer, to other graphic designer who might be listening, it's well worth your own freelance business to spend the $15 or whatever to get templates for stuff like this, so that you can then, which is why I don't charge by graphic, I charge by hour for stuff like this, because it's honestly going to take me like, 10 minutes to put stuff. Sometimes I'm downplaying it, it depends. But again, I have 10 years. That's my job. My day job is layout and graphic design. So
like I was going to say, I've worked in a lot of toxic jobs over the years. I've especially worked with like a lot of kind of like creative people who are maybe working in not so kind of creative positions. So like, graphic designers and writers who might not be doing exactly what they want to do, and maybe are kind of slightly being taken advantage of because, they may not have a huge amount of experience and are great and amazing at what they do, but, don't have a lot of other opportunities to bank on. So I've seen like how toxic kind of creative industries can be, and like the crunch that can evolve from that. So like when I was, when we decided to kind of like pull the lever and make Fat Magic bigger, it was really important to me that we would never get to that stage where, I would be putting unfair pressure or, being that negative toxic force on other people. Because I know like artists will go above and beyond, even if you aren't, pressuring them to get stuff done on time, because, they're good at their jobs. So it was really important to me that like, when I reached out to everyone, I made it like super clear that like, look, and I know some artists also hate this. I was like, here's the deadline. If something happens, that you need to go over, it's totally fine. Because like, yeah, it would be great if we have it for the launch of the Kickstarter and we can use it for advertising. If not, we're going to be able to put it out during the year. It's going to be in the book. I'm not stressed about that. Like if everyone comes off of this project saying like they had a positive experience and they got paid, I'll be super happy. And there is some art that hasn't come in yet, and it's totally fine. And I'm also super excited about it. Do you know why Fat Magic is called Fat Magic?
No. Yes. Tell me why. What? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So Fat Magic is like, it's a feeling, it's a sense of positivity. It's all that kind of stuff. It's also like a terrible magic that's in the game. But like the name, the words fat and magic, like first kind of like came to me when I was watching, do you know Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat?
Yes, I do.
So Samin Nosrat has this series on Netflix, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. And there is a line in the opening episode when she talks about how fat is is the magic of cooking. How, while it may not have a flavor of itself, it can enhance other flavors and help marry flavors together. And that's kind of like, that's what you want in your TTRPG game. You want something that takes all these messy aesthetics that don't necessarily work together, these tones that clash, and you want it all to gel together into one piece. And that's the magic of fat. That's fat magic. So that's where that actually comes from. So one of the artists right now, Tess Fowler, she did I think one of her most recent projects is a D&D comic, but she also does a lot of freelance work. She does a bunch of incredible work. She's working on a piece that's like inspired by Samin Nosrat, and it's of a spaghetti wizard, which I'm really, really excited about. I need to double check this. I think Tess only works in like physical stuff. So I might get that sent to me.
Ooh,
and have that on my wall.
Yeah, wonderful. So it feels good to me seeing somebody's passion becoming a realization, and I'm very happy that I can help contribute to that, and I'm excited to get to do the rest of it and see all the rest of the art. And I don't know, I'm just really overwhelmingly just filled with joy about this whole project. So for my listeners, if you wouldn't mind, could you like tell us where all the social stuff, all that like promo recap, where can people find you, Shane, Fat Magic, all that stuff?
Yeah, Fat Magic RPG on all the socials. So Fat Magic and then the letters RPG on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm most active on Twitter. So if you want like the most of the updates and the art and the treats and the terrible memes and the Kinley frogs, you're going to want to go to the Twitter. The Kickstarter is, you can just search Fat Magic on Kickstarter, or you can go to fatmagicrpg.com and that will take you right there. Yeah, that's everything.
Thank you so much again, Shane, for coming on.
Thanks for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed the show. You can find me on Twitter at Rocket Orca, Kenny as at Wolfmere, and John is at Crossways GM. Tabletop Babble is part of the Geekspective Network. Go to geekspective.com to check out all our other shows or follow us on Twitter at Geekspective. Our theme music was provided by the Battle Bards.